given the recent events in Syria, the issue of nuclear proliferation until recently has been less of a problem for Syria than it has been, less of a worry for, say, the Western countries and the United Nations about Syria than it has been for Iran or for North Korea. But if Syria is thought to be developing nuclear weapons, which some analysts argue that it has been, or has interest in doing so in the future, the current situation is going to make that a lot more dangerous, or potentially dangerous. So at the moment, Assad is, for all that he's doing, he's considered relatively stable by the Western countries, by the UN and so on. And I think they would prefer, when talking about the nuclear issue, to have him in control than anybody else, because the experience in, first of all, Iraq, and more recently in Tunisia, in Egypt and in Libya, is that when the old regimes go, when the powerful dictators go, the result is uncertainty. And uncertainty isn't good when nuclear weapons are concerned. It's likely to cause a lot more instability in the region.
Everybody knows about the taboo, the open secret of the Israelis having a nuclear weapon, and this of course gives a strong incentive to the neighboring countries to acquire themselves nuclear weapons, because they know that once you possess nuclear weapons, this is the best guarantee that you will never be attacked, because the point of every nuclear weapon, as I keep saying, is not to use them, right? Because you can only use them once. Okay, so, and if you use them, it means self-destruction guaranteed. Some people actually would say to authorize these countries to have nuclear weapons, paradoxically, would be a good thing, because it would be conducive of peace. Because if they all have nuclear weapons, they will not think in terms of attacking one another. So if they don't attack one another, there will be peace, right? I mean, and this is a very rational argument that has been put forward many times. Of course, the problem is that with a very uncertain leadership, with a bit of crazy ideas, right? I mean, what can make you certain that those people will keep behaving rationally? The international situation in Palestine does not look too promising right now. I mean, a lot of problems. Coming elections in the US, so very unlikely there will be any progress. The Israelis, they don't seem ready to make any compromises. There was some progress made within the Palestinians themselves, with some agreements being signed between the Hamas and the Fatah, the Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and the Fatah, which is the PLO, from which the president of Palestine is from. So there was some progress made locally, but internationally there didn't seem to be any progress, and I don't think we should expect any progress from being made, at least until the US presidential elections.
The situation in Palestine is, as ever, very complicated. Towards the end of last year, I think September or so, there was a move in the General Assembly to get Palestine recognised, to get it United Nations recognition. This didn't happen, and it wasn't popular with the United States, for example, obviously not with Israel, for several reasons. I think the Israelis would prefer to see a continued negotiated settlement leading towards a potential two-state solution, without the preemptiveness of a sovereign recognition by the United Nations. Sovereign recognition by the United Nations has caused problems in other parts of the world, the most recent being in Kosovo. The sovereignty issue is going to continue much in the same way as Kosovo continued for several years. I think that the Palestine sovereignty issue is unlikely to be resolved. Steps to resolve it in either the General Assembly or the Security Council are unlikely to meet with sort of universal approval. Certainly anything in the Security Council will be vetoed by the United States. That sovereignty is not going to happen in and of itself without the participation of the Israeli government. So in terms of the human rights situation in Palestine, that's likely, I think the best thing for the Palestinian Authority to do is to continue to press Israel on that front rather than pushing for sovereignty.